Hello everybody, welcome to today's video, and I would like to take you back to the year 2014 Zurich Chess Challenge and the game Hikaru Nakamura against Magnus Carlsen. And the matches between those two were always a little bit special. For one, because Nakamura for a very long time, up until 2016, wasn't able to beat Magnus Carlsen. Carlsen had a tremendous score against him. And for the other, because Nakamura engaged in some trash talking a long time ago, but he said something along the lines of that Carlsen is the Sauron of chess, referring to the figure from Lord of the Rings. Sauron? Not quite sure how this is pronounced, but there was some trash talking of the two, and this game was particularly dramatic, and I would like to share it with you right now. Before we begin, the comment of the day, it's by TM, and he says, I would prefer questions for a comment today. So we're still on this topic here. And here's one. Could you do YouTuber Blitz again like you did in the past, maybe against Jan Gustafsson? And I'm happy to say that I already have one lined up against Simon Williams. We're still trying to figure out the date, but this should happen very soon. And I'm excited for it because I really like those YouTuber blitzes as well. And I'm hoping also to play matches against John Bartholomew and maybe Ben Feingold. So should be good. If you have any more suggestions against who I should play, apart from Jan Gustafsson, of course, then also let me know in the comments. All right, now let's get to the game. Nakamura was playing against Carlsen with the white pieces. Zurich Chess Challenge 2014. Started with d4, and we have the Nimzo-Indian. f3 is a very aggressive style. Try to play against this while it wants to grab space in the center. As we see here, he plays e4, that's why f3 supporting e4, takes. And now white has a very nice center. Bishop g5, knight f3, white develops naturally, takes, and this already looks very pleasant for white, with the queen taking on f3 and their ideas to take on f6, and this all develops very naturally for white. He now castles queenside, and that means when there's such a situation where one side has castled short, as black has here, and the other side has castled long, then it's often about who can attack more quickly, who can push the pawns forward to attack the opponent's king. So white will want to push these pawns forward, whereas black will try to make something happen over here, and this is exactly what we see in this game. So that's something to consider in your own games. If there are opposite castles on opposite sides of the board, then there's a lot more dynamic play in the position because an attack against the kings is more likely. Whereas if it's on the same side, then you cannot just advance. Often you cannot really advance the pawns in front of your own king without weakening your own king too much, right? So let's see how this continues. Bishop d4, knight e2, c5, locking in the bishop on d4, but on the other hand also giving white a protected pass pawn on d5. And now white goes about pushing the pawns forward, and that's exactly the right strategy. King b1 is also a good move, just in general for later. It's always or often better to have the king on b1 than on c1. So good preparatory move. Sometimes I try to speak too quickly and then the words get messed up, I'm sorry. Rook a6, interesting idea here by Carlsen to bring the rook into the defense as well as maybe the attack, but as it turns out, white can cope well with the rook. Knight g3, g6 covering f5, h4, and we see white is advancing the pawns even further, and at this point his position is clearly better. a4 and rook h2, a nice move, having some defensive ideas as well as maybe doubling in the future on the h-file. So those moves are really the moves you like to make, multi-purpose moves, defending and preparing for the attack at the same time. Now queen a5 and bishop d2, queen drops back to c7 and g5. The bishop dropped back, so now Nakamura can advance his pawns, and h5 the position just plays itself really. Going forward with the pawns. Rook b6. Okay, black has a threat. White deals with it. Bishop c1. Over defending actually, over protecting the pawn. Works nicely. Rook b3. Yes, the rook is well placed on b3, but really the rook and the bishop are the only piece attacking the white king, whereas white can have a lot of pieces in the attack. So that's the difference here. Black cannot really strengthen his attack in the next couple of moves, and he has to switch to defensive mode. Knight b6, bishop e2, preparing to bring the rook to h1. Knight d6, rook dh1. And Carlsen, recognizing the difficulties in his position, tries desperate measures and sacrifice a piece, but this should not work. He gets 2 pawns, but for now the rook is defending the knight, and also the white attack is continuing. H takes g6, very logical move to open up the h file for the rook, and Carlsen plays queen to b6. If he takes back, then there's queen e6 check, and this is really annoying check to face. King h8, for example, queen takes g6, and queen f7, rook takes h7, just wins. Checkmate will follow as the rooks come down on the h file. So Carlsen played queen b6, threatening to take on b2, but Nakamura recognized and calculated everything correctly, and he played g7. Also g takes f7 is winning, but g7 is good. The point is that if now rook takes b2 check, white will of course not take. That would be mate immediately, but just steps to the side. And if then rook d8 or something like this, now white plays queen h4, threatening mate, and that's a pretty strong threat. Actually, to be honest, this is exactly what happens in the game. So after g7, black goes rook d8, now queen h4 happens, and now black takes on b2 and king a1. That was the game. Rook takes h2, rook takes h2, and black has to defend against the threat. And you see here the bar is all the way up for white. White is completely winning. The computer is right now showing +8. But as it is in chess, the saying goes, nothing is more difficult than winning 1 positions, and this also holds true, especially in this game. Knight f5, very logical move, threatening knight e7, rook e8, and black's barely holding on at the moment. And now white needs to still finish him off. I mean, black really sits passively and doesn't have a lot of ways to improve his position. So the question is, what can white do? Now Nakamura played queen to g4, which I think is fine. Carlsen goes queen b6, queen h3, queen g6 back. And here Nakamura takes an unfortunate decision. I think one nice way to finish this game would be to go queen f1, hitting the knight. So one very obvious move would be b5, and now white has this nice move available. Rook takes h7. If king takes, the queen comes to h3 and queen h8. And if queen takes, then there's knight h6 check. Black has to give the queen because after king takes g7, white takes an f7, takes an e8, goes here again, and goes here, and that's checkmate next move. So black would need to give the queen, and white is winning here with his extra queen, and also the pawn here, so this is winning. So this was one way. I mean, also white can sit still and do something else, because, okay, let's say move like queen h4, b5, and maybe now play d6. And now if the knight takes, rook d8, white can just come back with the knight to f5. There were many ways to play this position, but d6, as you can see, the bar goes all the way down and suddenly becomes unclear. And that's how it is in chess. You can play a great game like Nakamura did and give away a lot of your advantage in one single move. So you always have to be attentive, and especially if you're completely winning, and Nakamura was sure, I'm sure Nakamura was aware that he's completely winning here, and especially in these situations you need to stay concentrated. I think this is the biggest lesson to take away from this game. Let's see how this goes on. Knight takes c6, knight takes c6. So this was the point. White wins the piece because black cannot take. But black has this move, rook d8. And now he's threatening to take with the rook. And suddenly the white king is also weak, and it becomes very much unclear. And Nakamura makes another mistake. He plays knight c4. He needs to go knight c8, already a difficult move to make with the threat of knight e7. But black goes king takes g7, knight e7, rook d1 check, king a2, queen e6. And this endgame, white still has some winning chances, but I feel like could also ultimately be a draw. But this was the best way to play because of the knight c4, queen takes e4. White is already the one who has to be precise. The position is equal, but you have to be precise. And now Nakamura makes another mistake. He plays queen h5, and now you can see the bar goes in black's favor, and black is much better. Probably also the players, or at least Nakamura, were in time trial because many of the moves happened before move 40, or this is now move 40, and here knight e3 had to be played, and white is still okay. Queen d3, knight f5, and black can give a perpetual, and it's a draw. But after queen h5, Carlsen also finds all the correct moves here. Rook d3, nice move to bring the rook into attack against the white king. And white just cannot continue with his attack. This pawn is just protected and no way forward. Queen f5, queen e2, and now b5. Black has a lot of pawns for the piece as well. And he picks up another one and goes into his endgame, where he has, at the moment, 4 pawns. Is that right? Yeah, 4 pawns for the piece. Knight e4, now he has 5 pawns, and that's just too much, too many pawns. Having that many pawns, black can always try to trade queens, because every endgame is winning. And now he pushes his pawns forward, and there's nothing white can do. He can just watch pretty much. And white picks up a pawn here, but now on the other side, the pawn is getting all the way to h2, and h-pawns and a-pawns are in particular the greatest enemies of the knight, so knight cannot really help stopping the pawn either, and it is pretty clear that it will be over soon. Another pawn reaches the second rank, and now check, queen g1, queen takes e2, and queen a7 check. Black could have also queened immediately, but Carlsen chose to give a check to cover e7, and black is ready to queen next move. White will have like 1 check on g4 and that's it, so not even near a perpetual, and black is completely winning. It's a very, very dramatic game. Most likely also the situation against Carlsen played a role here for Nakamura, that he had never beaten him and he knew he was winning, so that added some pressure. But very exciting game, and also you have to recognize Carlsen's tenaciousness, still trying to hang on somehow and still posing problems. And then when the time was right, he came right back and managed to find all the correct moves and then also convert his advantage. And like I said, the biggest lesson to take away here is don't lose your concentration when you're winning. Always stay alert and remember this saying: there's nothing more difficult than winning a one game. Alright? So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.